Hello and welcome to Michael and Ivanka's Grand Podcast, a podcast for people that have known about Greta Thunberg and Extinction Rebellion for ages. My name's Michael Forrest.
And I'm Ivanka Magic.
And this week we're going to talk about Extinction Rebellion and probably a bit of Greta Thunberg as well. And some other sort of like... So it's I think because it was Earth Day, I guess that was why there was so much eco stuff in the news last week. So we're just going to kind of reflect on all of that, I think. So yeah, obviously, they set up in London and inconvenienced people for a bit, and some got arrested, presumably. I didn't actually... I think Ivanka's probably paying more attention.
Over 1,000.
How much? What?
Over 1,000 people
got arrested. Nice. How's it going, Ivanka?
It's going well. I always start like that. It's going well. Unfortunately, my child was sick for the first time ever in her little life last weekend, which brought to our attention how lucky we are that she's never been sick. Literally sick in a sort of vomity way, but she's also not been ill. So I've realised she's never had a day off nursery or anything. She's never had any sort of any infection, anything like that. But anyway, so she was very sick, and being very little and not being able to retain fluid, we did have to pop her into A&E for a little checkup.
How long were you there?
We were there for 3 hours. We were there for 3 hours. Brighton has got a really good children's A&E. So as soon as because I phoned 111 first because she had a vomity thing. I didn't really want to take her to a hospital because I thought if it's a bug, we don't want her infecting people. But I had a chat with that 111, and then they got a duty doctor to phone me, and he was like, maybe take her to get her checked, make sure she's not dehydrated. And so, but as we arrived, we got straight into a room, so we were quarantined off, and then given some fluids and some instructions for how to get them down her. Okay. And frankly, I felt like a bit of a fraud because she just drank everything without being sick. But then we took her home, and then the next day the diarrhea started.
Oh, lovely.
So,
lovely.
Yeah, I confess, despite my desire to not waste things, I did cut her pyjamas off her because there was no way I was going to lift them over her head. Oh. And then it was delightful. So the first time in her little life, she spent 2 days just lying down and barely speaking. It was quite weird for all of us. But yeah,
I remember being young and
really.
like one of the first times I was sort of sick with, I guess, measles or chicken pox or something, and going to stay at my grandparents' house and being given like crisps and lilt and things like that I'd nenever had before. So being sick it's quite a pleasant memory.
We did discuss the fact. My mother and I discussed the fact that because we were giving her apple juice, which we don't buy fruit juice at home. We don't really. So did the Diorolite thing, and then as she got better, I was giving her apple juice, and basically whatever she asked to eat, she got. We bought dry biscuits, something that was a bit sweet, and so my mum was like, "Oh, I think she's worked out that there are some fringe benefits to feeling really ill." You can sit there and demand juice and biscuits, and you get them. But then, to her credit, she got given an Easter egg by somebody, and she had a nibble, and it had Smarties in the middle. She had 2 Smarties, which she called chocolate buttons because she's not ever had Smarties. And then she was like, "It's too sweet." Yeah. So I was like,
yes, for now. She's not immediately addicted to crack. Sugar, those things like a Cadbury's, well, whatever it is, those Easter eggs are just absolute filth, aren't they?
They are. Well, yeah, we tried, and then Nick and I both tried some. We were like, yeah, she's right. It's not very nice.
We had
it's sitting there staring at us.
We were eating quite a lot of gelato when we were in. So I've been away in Italy for 10 days. We ate quite a lot of ice cream out there. which it's gelato, so it's slightly different to normal ice cream. Sharon hates that. She was like some people are like, well, gelato, it's a slightly different process to ice cream. She's like, no, gelato just means ice cream. Shut up. So I always go, yes, this isn't as good as ice cream, this gelato. And she goes, but it was some good, not too
good
sweet treats to be had. And we
I do. If it weren't for ice cream, I could probably give up cake. Cakey things, sweet things. Anyway,
I don't know. We got some of these biscuits, the like almondy, just like there's got like slightly harder outside, like a crunch, but then a sort of soft almondy inside, and like sort of some powder, sort of icing powder on the outside, or whatever you call it. And I'm like, this is the best biscuit. I've never had a good biscuit like this. So I've been. But the nice thing about that is that we've only got 8. So I sort of disciplined myself yesterday to only have 2 of them, so that there's more for tonight. so there's just
very grown up.
Well, I've been off the gym as well, so it's all been a bit like, oh no, am I causing problems? I was back to the gym for the first time in a couple of weeks this morning, and there was a little bit more nausea than usual. It's just a little touch of maybe I need to be a bit more gentle, that kind of thing. But yeah, so we went down to Florence for a couple of days, and Italy really does sort of beautiful, unspoilt kind of views, landscapes, cities. Gives good cathedral. We went up the Duomo in there. Like that is an amazing cathedral from the outside. Still, the Venice one was just outside and inside. You're like, wow, this is some money. There's some money gone into this. It's like just details and details. The Florence one inside, I was a bit, it's not as good as Venice. But yeah, some spectacular 360-degree views from sort of the top of the hill. And just it's all this sort of terracotta rooftops and just greenery and plant life and beautiful churches, and they managed to keep it nice. Apart from like safety tape that they don't seem. It's like, here's a beautiful landscape and here's some sort of slightly ugly kind of barriers that we've just thrown in. So I just wish they'd sort that out. And then
did you end up seeing lots of Madonna con Bambini?
A lot of like statues of sort of beautiful naked men, but like, so they're sort of, they're sort of naked, but they're always holding some sort of phallic object at sort of groin level, like a club. Which I like the symbolism of it. We're not going to actually give them, we're not going to make anything explicit, but they are all, the naked ones, a lot of them are going to be holding these very suggestive clubs. Just to, you get the idea with that. And then, that was my main impression of that area of Italy. I think being in the sun, though, for a bit, I think I was looking this morning, I'm like, I've got 2 forehead wrinkles that I wasn't really conscious. I think maybe just getting a bit of sun is like, okay, those are now wrinkles in the forehead. You are an old... Like, I've been looking at the what do you call it, crow's feet a little bit. I've been watching a lot of RuPaul, listening to RuPaul's podcast, and they were talking about, like, they call it the dentist, but it's really when you go for sort of collagen injections. And they do a lot of that. I'm not saying.
I quite like my eyebrow. I've got a couple of eyebrow wrinkles from sort of raised eyebrow, kind of. And especially because I think I often raise my left eyebrow without really knowing. So I've got these couple of lines. I quite like those. I'm like, yes.
I've always thought I'm like grumpy wrinkles, but we'll see. I think that could be quite charismatic, so fuck it.
Well, it's just what it is.
All right.
I got some nice feedback from my the fostering journey I designed, which I was quite pleased with. Apparently, apparently, and because I wasn't presenting the findings, I've sort of been working on this business case, and hopefully the person that I've been building it for will get it through. I think she's got the wherewithal to push it through the politics. But she said one of the clients, she said, was actually quite emotional. She felt that Ivanka primarily had absolutely captured the essence of the service and what they were trying to do.
Wow.
Boom.
Good work.
So, whilst I don't have the requisite commitment levels to be a foster carer, given the opportunity to use IT to help them, I've done my best.
That's good.
I did have a meeting last week with. I was sort of preparing in my head a list of things to like what do I want to bring up on the podcast. There's lots of things to talk about, but I think a little nod to people, IT folk who work in the public sector. And don't understand that their job is to create tools to help people delivering services. For them, I wish no good.
What do they think their job is?
They just I don't know, to put up barriers, to wield their power, their IT powers. We will prohibit apps without explanation.
Yeah.
We will sit there and go, but that's hard. No, my friends. Fostering is hard. Writing code can be hard work.
So, do what I do. Say, that's hard, but then do it. Complain about it, but still do it.
Complain all you like, but fucking build it, you bellends.
Okay, Extinction Rebellion. Who are they? Why do we suddenly care about... Well, we've talked about Extinction Rebellion this week, but I think Ivanka can probably explain...
It's been... while you've been away, you've missed.
I've failed to be inconvenienced by any climate accident.
You failed, yeah. You have missed a glorious almost 2 weeks of consistent and creative and striking and impactful, peaceful, non-violent activism, bringing climate change right to the front pages of all the newspapers.
Excellent.
We have had Gail Bradbrook on Good Morning Britain, nearly in tears, grieving for the planet, with the people around, with Richard Madeley asking her the most dumb fuck questions I have ever had the misfortune of witnessing. But she held her... He was just being, but what about the people being inconvenient? I mean, it was just, is this the way to do it? Yes, it is. Yes, it is, Richard. And if you let her answer the question, she will expect. And even, I can't remember the other woman's name. I gave her a shout out on Twitter for going, no, hang on a minute, Richard. Suffragettes, everything that's ever worked has involved. In fact, the suffragettes were quite violent.
Well, I saw a radio interview with George Monbiot where the guy said, "Well, the suffragettes didn't break any laws," and he was like, "What are you talking about?" They broke into Parliament.
They fucking smashed windows. They learnt jiu-jitsu so that they could fight the police. Kettling was invented for the suffragettes.
Crazy. Anyway, I'm reading Bloody Brilliant Women at the moment, and I'm nearly halfway through.
Oh.
Have you seen that one?
Wow. No.
It's got
Bloody
all this
Brilliant Women.
History through the lens of, different sort of women that did really good stuff, and just kind of focusing on that. Their impact on sort of the Industrial Revolution, in the First World War, and it's just all this, just lots of interesting, not all likeable, like a lot of mean women, but getting stuff done. So and some stuff, lots of the different factions of the suffragettes I'm starting to learn about now. So check me out, feminist.
Factions is quite an interesting thing to bring up. So it's been a week. It's been about 10 days, really, 11 days of, really persistent and consistent action. My mother was upset she couldn't go, but her hip was too sore, so she couldn't she just couldn't go. And I, as we've discussed previously, well, I have to say, watching Gail Bradbrook on Good Morning Britain and whatever it's called, seeing her tearful, I still have this problem with if I overthink the climate, or if I pause to think about the climate crisis, it's very easy for me to tear up. I feel I don't think I've come out, like I feel like I'm in some ongoing grieving process for the amount of change that's going to be required for us to get over this. That doesn't mean that I'm pessimistic. It just means that I can't. And in fact, this last 10 days has made me feel very optimistic, because I feel like we are the right amount of action is happening and the right amount of attention, and politicians, Jeremy Corbyn has come out very clearly and understood, I think, and made a statement about climate change being a class issue as well, because it will always be the poorest in society who suffer the most. Ed Miliband has been vocal. Diane Abbott. There's a lot of politicians. Michael Gove has gone blah, 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 obviously, because, greenwash. But we've had, and then I was... Go on, sorry.
Yeah, I had this little moment on the tube where I sort of saw a metro folded in half, and it was like, Gove to Greta. And I was like, but that's all I could see? I was like, Christ, what's it going to be? I just didn't want to go over there because I had all my kind of the bags from travelling, and then I sort of looked it up later, and it was like, Gove to Greta, we hear you. And I was like, oh, okay, fucking hell. Someone actually, for once, not just one of these fucking partisan Brexit style reactions to things. For what it's worth, it was better than what I was imagining for an hour there. She went to Parliament. I don't know if you had an opportunity to read the transcript or watch any of it, but literally at some point she's going, hello, is my microphone on? I Facebooked.
Can you hear me? Oh, you Facebooked it.
Yes.
Exactly. But obviously she was not getting a reaction.
Yeah, well, that's...
she's saying,
I didn't know if that was...
your house... It's like, hello, did you hear me? But I was very lucky. Nick and I went up on Monday and we saw her speak it was a panel discussion. Greta Thunberg, Anna Taylor, who's the young woman who is sort of one of the key organisers in the student climate strike in the UK, and Caroline Lucas. It was brilliant. Nick and I were the only people that turned up on a motorbike. Yeah. But we got there on time. As a bit of a push. Public transport. We were like, the child's ill. I got my mum to babysit. I was like, but we literally into London and out of London.
Right.
But Nick was like, on the way out of that, he was like, I think it not finally, because we had this conversation about whether we should both go. And I said, I was like, maybe you shouldn't go, because you're doing, he listens to, if I say we're not eating meat at home or whatever, he's like, okay, cool. And I was like, maybe one of us should be not really understand the full depth of it. So one can be really light-hearted about it, and the other one can be like, oh my God. But when we came out of it was a really good panel discussion. But Nick walked out of it going, right, when we get home, we need to sit down and make a plan about how we're going to save the world. It was nice. It was good that we went together. It was kind of, but there was a couple of moments I thought that were noteworthy. One was Caroline Lucas saying, if we all stop for a moment and think about what the state the planet is actually in, the state of the insect population, the state of the animal extinction rate, the state of the warming. And then she went, fuck. That's what she said. And then I was like, which was hugely human, I thought, because it is like that. But then you had also, Greta Thunberg. It's like, whatever you asked her, she's like, I think we should listen to the scientists. Yeah. What should we do about this? listen to the scientists. We know what to do. We just need to do it. And the thing that came across to me about her was that she's hugely humble. She's not doing this because she wants some sort of profile. She's doing this because she doesn't know what else to do.
Yeah.
Do you know? So it's
we've said there's no ego there, is there? And that's kind of what
No,
makes
not
her
at
so
all.
magnificent. It's just that, like, she's immune to that sort of like Trumpist bullshit. She's immune to all that because look at the scientists. This many scientists think this.
Yeah.
These are the facts.
Yeah.
That this is a list of facts. Like, this is it's so refreshing to just, she's not susceptible to that stuff, and that's unbelievable, really.
Well, I think one thing that did come up, one of the, again, another, 16, 17-year-old in the audience put her hand up and asked a question. She's been organising the climate strikes in Oxford, and she's also said that she was autistic. And she said, do you think it's just easier for those of us who are neuroatypical? And Greta was like, yeah, we see through the lies and we're not really interested in the bullshit. So it's like, yeah, everyone should listen to us because we don't care. It's like, so I thought that was quite a, there were so many good things have come out of the last 2 weeks that I think are, I do hope that we are at a sort of turning point now. It's going to need sustained action. It's not like, dust off your hands, right, that's it, got on the front pages of the newspaper, it's done. But I feel like it's too loud, it's getting too loud to ignore now.
Well, the one thing, I do worry that because it was Earth Day, so it was in the news for that, and everything was happening around that.
Earth Day came at the end,
right? Yeah, but
so
even
I'm
so,
not
it's
sure
like I don't know if they scheduled it, but like to keep it in the news. I don't know that we're safe. I don't know that it's now going to be always in the news necessarily, but like we'll see. But what I was very encouraged by was that The Guardian are now putting carbon pollution, whatever, like some carbon indicator in the weather forecasts every day now. So that's sort of, you've got to do something that reminds you every day, because that's the only way, rather than it being like this sort of spike of news, which, I know it's been 2 weeks, but, then if we get back to Brexit and Trump and that sort of thing, then that's my worry.
Sadly, that carbon, well, not sadly, that carbon thing was pre this.
Okay.
The thing that's changed is that, I don't know if you remember, 2-3 weeks ago, maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, there was Caroline Lucas asked there was a climate debate scheduled in Parliament, and only maybe 12 MPs turned up. It was a really, really shamefully low turnout. I think Greta Thunberg going to Parliament, speaking to MPs directly, being acknowledged in Parliament, I think it's not. And Caroline Lucas said this interesting thing. It's just this weird, because climate change is such an existential crisis. Many of us don't really want to confront and understand that it's happening. So understandably, and so therefore we're not putting pressure on government, because we're kind of, government's not talking about it, so therefore it can't be that serious. So I'm going to ignore it. But government won't talk about it because we're not talking about it, and it's in this vicious circle of, unless you put pressure on politicians to talk about it, they won't talk about it. But if they're not talking about it, we don't worry about it.
Yeah, and then we're not talking about it because it doesn't sell newspapers, and it doesn't make things you want to click on Facebook. It's like, oh no. So someone has to put the fucking big boy hat on or whatever. Someone has to wear step up,
put their big girl pants. Yeah.
I mean, what was that? Theresa May
didn't turn up.
Though, right? So cool, classy. I'm too busy with Brexit.
And but then one of the newspapers that is really going for it, aside from The Guardian, is the FT.
Right.
Which I think is very interesting. They've had a couple of really good cartoons. One with, I don't know if you saw it, with the planet, with Extinction Rebellion pushing from one side and the oil trucks pushing from the other side. I thought that was excellent cartoon. And they've interviewed founders, they've got them on a podcast, because, you know, the Bank of England, a lot of the, like Delton had said in his email to you as well, like the Bank of England have made a stronger statement than that speech we shared we spoke about a little while ago. So Mark Carney has spoken. I mean, it is a crisis, and unless we start behaving like it's a crisis, we're fucked. Edit.
Cool.
Greta said, I did actually take notes. I was trying to listen. I was going to tweet, and then I just didn't want to tweet because I wanted to listen. And so but she wrote things like, she's like, we can't be a little bit sustainable.
Right.
Because she's got a big problem with greenwashing. She's like, you know, you either are.
Can you define
or you're
greenwashing
not.
For me? I've not heard
greenwashing is we are a multi-billion-pound oil company, but we put aside a £200,000 stipend every year for scientists to research alternative fuel sources, or you know, like
it's like PR, eco PR for these companies that
eco
are really doing all
PR
the damage.
Yeah. It's
Greenwashing.
like BP have changed their logo to be all flowers, you know,
Isn't that gross?
look at us, we're all about all, you know. So it's that sort of, let's pretend we're green when we're really not. And there's just no, I told you I was at this trustees meeting this morning. We were there to discuss, you know, quite a serious HR matter, but two of the trustees are founders of this first organic supermarket in the UK. They're, you know, they're cool old dudes. And we were talking about the fact that at the moment, like there is a divide. We are truly divided at the moment along these lines of, depressingly, I don't know if you saw it, I saw a petition yesterday where 30,000 people have signed a petition to get McDonald's to bring back plastic straws, because you can't, their paper straws are sort of disintegrating if you try and drink your McDonald's milkshake through them. I'm like, first of all, drink out of the cup. You're a fucking grown up.
It's not the same.
It's like
I saw like did you post that thing, like a metal straw? I was like, I'd be scared of a metal straw.
Yeah, I'm scared of a metal straw. No, I didn't post it because I've been tempted, because my little girl, you know, she loves straws, and the paper ones. They, you know, everyone likes a straw. You can blow bubbles in your. I used to have a washable plastic one when I was a little girl. My mum bought me and my brother one each, which was like a spiral. We had them for ages, and you could like watch the drink come up.
And when you're a grown up, you get to have cocktails which have two straws, one bent down.
Yeah.
That's part of the look. You know, the umbrella, a couple of straws, some flowers, chili pepper.
But I'm terrified of buying her a metal straw. It just looks like a weapon. Yeah, no, she's not getting one.
But yeah, yes, but also, yeah, George Monbiot, that video I shared, I'll put it in the link, but him sort of saying, like, enough of this micro-consumerist bollocks, like, that's not going to solve the problem. We're pissing around the margins of the problem. And until industry's set up and until we basically take down capitalism and its addiction to growth against all else, he talks about 3% growth a year is a doubling every 24 years. Are you nuts? And it's absolutely trashing the planet. It's trashing our brains, because everything is geared towards advertising to us on Facebook feeds and making that as addictive as possible, and using up as much of our spare attention to make money from until there's none left. Without basically taking down capitalism, it's hard to see a way of... It's just plastic straws.
No, well,
what's that?
But I mean, it's blah, 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 blah. I think it is
I'm going to leave one of those in one day.
A very interesting time. Sorry?
I'm going to leave one of those in one day.
You're going to leave one in? Do. That's me getting my words straight. Because about 5 things, what happens is about 5 things come into my head at the same time and I have to pick one. Couple of things. I think our biggest saviour is going to be us thinking like a cooperative collective. Like, it cannot be selfish. We can't get over this if we're selfish, because I think the thing with the focus on carbon, one thing we cannot forget is that without the bees, there's no food. The decline in an insect population is extremely dangerous to us as humans. We live on this planet that is an ecosystem that needs all its bits to work. And so I think there's sort of this thinking more as a big global community is going to be vital, because the interesting thing about carbon sinks like big forests is that they don't have to be localized. A carbon sink, that's why the Amazon is so important to the whole world. Is like a big forest is a big forest. It doesn't matter where it is. It works for all of us. But what's depressing about all of this is that I got taught that in school.
Yeah, no, we all got fucking taught all this
35 years
fucking
ago.
school.
So
long ago. I just keep coming back to like seeing a rerun of like episode 1 of The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and it being like environment. Like it was just in there, and it's like what happened?
What have we been doing? Yeah, there is a depressing thing about, like, somebody posted yesterday, like, when should you start worrying about climate change? Like 1986. You know, we knew. I mean, I know that Michael Jackson is not a acceptable figure these days, but because my daughter's become slightly obsessed with him, I have had to rewatch all his videos and all those things like Earth Song and all that. They're like, they're a big deal. And like, there was like, and that's 20 years old now, 25, 30 years old. It's like, come on.
So it's fucking capitalism. And like Mark Fisher, the late Mark Fisher said, it's easier for us to imagine the end of humanity than for us to imagine the end of capitalism, which, like, that's terrifying, right? It's one way of looking at things, and it's just not, like, GDP growth is not the way we should be looking at things.
No.
But just to take you back to the insect population, insects are a bit gross, let's face it. Butterflies.
Yeah, loads of them are. Yeah.
Butterflies, Sharon, is particularly anti. Because they're not beautiful. They've got horrible little antennae, and they get in your face. So she's like, if there's a butterfly, she's like, I'm like, all right, no, it's gone. Is it on my back? No, it's gone. But we watched one of the most disturbing couple of minutes of TV ever. RuPaul's Drag Race finale. They have to do it like a lip sync. They have to do a dance. And there's been this sort of escalating arms race of like things you do, like throwing stuff in the air and glitter and like transforming dresses. And it's sort of got bigger and bigger and bigger and all these different moves. And one of these queens... she had these sort of like long boobs like this and like these big watch things. And then her big reveal was going to be she took off the watch thing and some butterflies were supposed to fly out. Some live butterflies out of this dress that was all butterflies. But they had these close-ups and the butterflies were just like twitching and not moving and dying. And there was all these close-ups. And the audience shots going... And then she sort of kept persevering with all the different ones, and it was just all these dead butterflies. It's the worst thing I've seen since the guy gets his skull crushed in Game of Thrones, like with someone's bare hands. Like, it had the same reaction. It was like, what is happening? And it wasn't like explicitly called out, like in what they were saying on stage, but you were just like. And they're dancing around, tumbling around this stage. And you're like, there are so many crushed dead butterflies there. So, my God. But we need to save them from drag queens.
Blimey, I never expected that front to open in the war of survival.
Okay, back to I'm just trying to interject a little bit of
lightheartedness,
some lighthearted stuff into this doom, because it's doom,
existential. I've got some beautiful, but I came away from.
Let's hear the positive stuff that you're excited about.
I think I'm positive about the general energy around this. I think the general energy, the not being in the background, we're in this. We've got to do this. We have got to do this. I insist. My sister said, though, it's on. We were talking about it yesterday because we were talking about the fact that I kind of half wanted to go. There was an Extinction Rebellion meeting in Brighton last night, and Nick had to do a photo shoot, so I would have had to book a babysitter. And I was like, I want to go, but I don't want to go because I think I'll just cry. And Lydia's going, look, Ivanka, the good news is it's on everybody's mind. Her foster kid came home from school yesterday, day before. I mean, obviously he's been at the climate marches, but he's like, he came home and declared a sort of, we must not eat meat anymore at home. Like she said, there's nobody, she said a couple of years ago, it's like where it was sort of, it just wasn't as mainstream.
Yeah. Well, even Burger King have got a veggie burger now, haven't they?
Yeah, loads of places have got vegan and vegetarian options now, and it's not really. I mean, I know Brighton is a slightly, and London is a slightly sort of anomalous city, but Subway, I think, have got a vegan sandwich now. Do you know what I mean? It's like if it's starting to be all these mainstream places, it's just more in your face. I think.
So it's meat and high fructose corn syrup. If we could get those under control, that would make a huge difference.
But just think how healthier we'll all be.
Yeah.
Like, we are not meant to consume either food nor things nor information at the level at which we're consuming them. That's not, it's not healthy.
It's also hypercharged as well. Everything's hypercharged. The food you get, this kind of like processed food is this hypercharged. It's got so much sugar in it, so much salt. Like, it's not, and then it's addictive, and it's just like, you just have to like take one day, just say no to ice cream, even though you want it. The next day, you won't want it anymore because it's kind of intense and a bit like, it makes you a bit prickly. And just say no to meat because it makes you tired after you eat it. It sits in your stomach for hours and hours and hours, just like slowly rotting, and makes you tired. It's energy to just digest it. And it's just like, I just can't even do it anymore. I know we don't want to get onto the subject, but I just taste the deadness now through the herbs and the flavourings. I just taste the deadness, and I'm like, I don't want the deadness. Obviously the plants are dead too, but
yeah, but not in the same way. I don't know if I told you before that, because we get this restaurant magazine delivered to the house, and that had a whole article about sustainability couple of months ago. I can't remember if I mentioned it on the podcast, but part of it was that basically we need to change the structure of a plate of food. So restaurants, for them, it's not it's an interesting part of the conversation about how to change to more sustainable food, given that meat is just not sustainable on a scale. But they spoke about the fact that humans can't process more than 85 grams of protein. So therefore, and if you think about it, steaks are often, 400 gram steaks. And they were like, if all the restaurants changed the structure of the plate of food, so it had an 80 gram steak, and then the rest was, imaginative vegetables, you're becoming more sustainable just by this reduction idea. Like we can't, the absolutism is very hard to achieve. But if you start making people make steps towards just reducing everything.
But that sort of makes it sound like it's a sacrifice, and I just think some nice. I don't think so. The way they spoke about it, it's a treat. It's nice. Just imagine some nice veggies. All nice and given the same love as the meat. But I don't. I think have to be a sacrifice.
Yeah, I don't think they were presenting it as it was like anything over 80 grams is a waste. Stop flogging people a 400 gram steak because they're just
those American steaks that they do. Those like, you can eat meat.
Come here
things.
and eat this 85-ounce steak, and then if you can eat it, you can have it for free.
No one should put that in their body. Don't put that in your body, people. It's not good. It's like something twice the size of your stomach. Chew it up. Chew. And then it's in there. Ooh, lovely. So the two things that consumers can do, apparently, according to George Monbiot, the things he said when he was talking about micro-consumerist bollocks and all the plastic straw stuff and earbuds and that kind of thing, he was saying, like, stop eating meat and stop flying. So we're sort of one of each. But I've been living... So I've got this fucking thing at the moment, which is I'm so grateful to Sharon for I've been promising her a holiday to East Asia for ages. And finally this month I've had the money to do it. And now I'm like, I don't want to not do this. I don't want to not go to Hong Kong and Tokyo. I don't want to not. Why are you telling me I can't go to fucking see the world because I'm going to destroy it? It's not fair. That is what's your advice to me as a, hardline activist?
I think the flying thing is give you you may go. No. I think it is so flying can't be uninvented. The desire to travel can't be uncreated.
There are a great many social benefits to that sort of travel as well. Let's not forget that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think my sister and I had a conversation about this yesterday when we were having our, oh my God, Liv, what's going to end? She's like, no, it isn't. And then we flipped and she talked about her stuff. We talked about children and how she's going to change the laws. It's just a different topic. But it's like, okay, so what? So part of the Extinction Rebellion demands is that they want a citizens' assembly. And their definition of a citizens' assembly is you get together a randomly selected 1,000 people, experts sit in front of them and present solutions. Let's say, you have a pro-fracking scientist and an anti-fracking scientist, or people who understand blah, blah, blah. You have a few experts in a thing, but from a scientific point of view, not a making money point of view, or maybe economists, whatever. And then given they first become educated on a topic, and then they are asked to vote about how we would like to deal with it. Mm-hmm. So if you were present at a citizens' assembly about flying, so some of the solutions that might come out of it is that flying internationally becomes rationed.
Okay.
So let's say, if you take it from and this was part of what Lydia and I were talking about yesterday, it's like, would it be such a terrible thing if you're going to do a long haul flight, you're allowed 1 in 5 years, 1 in 10 years? What would be, so you can still do it, but there are only X number of flights allowed in the world in a year. There's a cap. And if, for example, you've got a sick relative who lives far away, you then can make, it's an exceptional circumstance flight that you can make, or you're allowed 1 short haul flight a year, or I don't know. So, I mean, if you think about it, like in terms of your own personal carbon footprint, because I've been thinking about it in terms of mine, because I have taken a flight this year and I try really hard just to stick to one a year. And I tried to do the trains and I couldn't work out the sun, blah, blah. And it was just going to be, it was too much bother, despite and it was a guilt-ridden trip, but I flew. And it's like, but, you know, I'm not exaggerating either. I really do agonise over these things. But, you know, but, you know, and then, so what else do I do in my life that sort of compensates my own personal impact? Or you know...
It's hard to know if we don't know the actual numbers as well. Like, what is this the equivalent of? Like, because we were talking about this, it was like, so what is the carbon? Yeah, I think you knew these numbers. Like the carbon benefit of driving to Croatia versus flying there was. I think you had some numbers. It was so the flight was something like, I don't know, 127 units versus 26 units of car or something. Like, it's significant. I think when you do those WWF carbon calculator things, they talk about your... They actually don't ask you to include flights for work. Yeah. I'm sure I've mentioned this before. I was like, so can I do the loophole of just getting some work out there, and then I don't have to put it into my carbon
then you don't have to, like, but then if you listen to Katharine Hayhoe, that climate scientist that I share her quite a lot on Twitter. I quite like her because she's a Christian and a climate change activist, and I find that she's... Katharine is spelled Katharine. It's a K, and her surname is Hayyoe. Because she's a Christian and a climate scientist, she's quite handy to roll out where the Christians, when the Christians go all climate denial. Oh, we'll throw in a favourite Greta Thunberg moment from that talk. It was because it was a panel thing. Hi, Greta. How do you deal with climate deniers? I don't.
Exactly. That's it, isn't it? It's like, well, it's hard when they are the president, but okay. But yeah, just don't, I guess.
But yeah, so I don't enter into conversations. She's like, if you, I think then I've seen her somewhere else talk about the analogy of like, you can't deny that the heart is pumping blood. It is a fact that the heart pumps blood. Yeah. Anyway, so Katharine Hayhoe talks about when she flies, because she said, I understand the sort of irony of me as a climate change. I'm going around giving talks on why we must take climate change seriously, but I'm flying. And she said what she does is try and group talks. Yeah. So she's going to go somewhere. She'll try and fit in as many talks in that location as possible. She's tried replacing with video links where possible. And some people don't want to go for it. Some do. So it's a... on a personal level, you not get it, maybe the question is different. Like what would you not do instead? So you fly, you do your Hong Kong and Tokyo trip. Okay. How are you going to make up for that?
Yeah. And here's maybe
Michael.
I just want to have here's my jar of carbon debt that I've just created that I can't ignore. But also here's the conundrum I've had. It's like, looking at the prices, it's pretty expensive. And we sort of did a lot of research. We're looking around. And it was like, actually, it's fair deal cheaper to just go to Hong Kong. Then we can stay somewhere nice and come back. But then I'm thinking, yeah, but I still want to go to those other places. So am I just, deferring? And then if I'm just deferring it to trips. Next year or something, then that's 2 trips. Yeah. And really that's just, I need to kind of just cough up the extra cash so that we're not flying back and the whole way there and back twice and then around. I need to actually and then if it is about carbon offset, it's it does probably mean spending a fair chunk more money, but at least then the actual kind of net carbon emissions will be a fair bit lower. And I think that's what I have to do really if I'm going to do it,
Yeah, go for a month instead of 2 weeks or whatever.
Oh, God.
Go do a big trip.
3 weeks.
Maybe do it next year. Maybe say but Nick and I spoke about this. He was like, when we left that thing last Monday, and he said, what do you think about us flying a motorbike to Alaska and then flying it back? I was like, I have thought about it. And I was like, well, but then we spent a year traveling really slowly, really like, and it had for us as a couple of people who, you know, always had done things like we had organic veggie boxes before we went, and we had, you know, milk delivered in glass bottles, and blah, blah, blah. But going and living for a year off a motorbike massively changed our shopping habits, for example, and our awareness of the, you know, so travelling has this
connection to the environment.
Thing that it does. And we lived in, you know, we would live it because, that was another great quote from Caroline, which I must look up because she was quoting somebody else. She was talking about the need for children to be taught about nature is because she said, we won't protect what we don't love, and we can't love what we don't know.
Okay.
So if you understand and you feel connected, she was quoting somebody else. I was going to look it up because she said to quote.
Takes us back to RuPaul, where you know, some of these queens, they're closed off, they're not showing themselves, and you can't fall in love with someone that isn't vulnerable. And it's like that for nature.
It is.
And on that,
so you
that's the end of the episode, Ivanka. Okay, thanks for listening. If you like the podcast, please subscribe. If you haven't already, subscribe. Go to grandpodcast.com and subscribe. Or if you listen to it in Apple Podcasts or whatever, hit subscribe on there so that you get next week's. Where can people find you, Ivanka?
People can find me at Ivanka on Twitter.
You can find me at michaelforestmusic.com, blankstate.org. On Facebook, on YouTube, go to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/user/Michael Forest. Used to be just /Michael Forest, but something happened and I don't have that anymore. So don't just go there because you're going to get some loser and not my very fertile and rich, exciting YouTube channel. What else can people do? People can write us some review. Well, actually, email us, hello@grandpodcast.com. Write us some reviews. Tweet at us. Reviews and ratings really, really help. Telling your friends really, really helps. In subscribing your friends is really helpful too. And generally, just send us some feedback because we do like to know what you think. Excellent. Especially if it's good. Ideally, it will be good. Yes, and recommendations. Did you say that? Give us some. I mean, not that we've got any bloody time. Yeah. I did get some reading done while I was away, so I've read Bloody Brilliant Women, a bit more. I'm getting through Bullshit Jobs. Hopefully, I can get onto. And I started Kate Raworth's book properly as well, but that's kind of like sitting there waiting to be finished. Yeah. And the more we can read, the more we. It's the good thing is the stuff that we talk about on here I keep seeing popping. I don't know if I'm just Facebook, my bubble is just all about this stuff now, or if it is actually everywhere. But then if I see in M&S there's newspapers that are saying this got Greta on the front, I'm like, okay, that's reassuring. But yes, anyway, so the more we learn, the more we all, I don't know. The better we feel. This is stupid. Thanks for listening. Bye. 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 Bye.